Time for Ask the Mayor on KWBE, our weekly program with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan as we talk about city issues, things going on in the community of Beatrice. Good morning, Bob.
Doug, good morning. Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful morning.
Yeah.
I'm doing fine.
We're going to start to get into 80 degrees here. I'm almost not used to it yet. I'm used to that back and forth stuff that we've had.
Well, yeah, that's what it's been. It's been really a strange March. It's really nice one day, and then it's cold, and it has all of us kind of confused.
Can the hot weather be very far away, the 90s and things like that?
We know it's around the corner.
It's there somewhere, that's for sure. One of the things that happened this week is kind of a fun thing that happens every year, and that's honoring some second graders at the Beatrice City Council meeting for their recycling and cleanup efforts. And you got the chance to do that again this past Monday.
That is always fun.
Yeah.
Keep Beatrice Beautiful does a really nice job. There was 8 students there from the elementary and the 2 private schools, and the kids have this beaming smile on their face, and it's really, really fun. They get the opportunity to sit in the mayor's chair, and if they want to bang the gavel, and then of course they get an award. And I think Runza and Dairy Queen. Dairy Queen.
They get a T-shirt out of it, a certificate.
So but on the other side of the coin, they worked for it.
Yeah.
Because I remember if the program works right, they have a week that they collect garbage from around the community and bring it in, and the people who collect the most garbage from each class are then awarded that opportunity to become mayor for the day and get a certificate and attend. So those are a lot of times those are a lot more fun than some of the other things we just have to deal with on a day-to-day business opportunity.
Yeah. Well, and we see the small group of kids, but there's a lot more kids involved in it. So it's kind of a friendly little competition. There's some incentive to do as well as you can.
Absolutely, there is, and it helps. And when you think about it, it just kind of also helps that installation at the young age of civic pride in your community.
Yeah. As I was driving around the day after that, I got to looking for litter and stuff because, we drive along, you don't think of looking for things like that. But then when you're really focusing on it, looking at areas of the town where it is present, you're wondering, now, why didn't I notice that before? I could just as easily get out there as a citizen, take a plastic bag with me, and maybe pick up some of that stuff.
I know. So. I know. I think about that a lot. In the mornings, the dog and I always go out for, a good walk, and it's amazing sometimes the things that you can pick up and the things that you see. And, I also have to be a little careful with him because the other day I see somebody threw a sack of McDonald's out, and there was like must have been a half a cheeseburger in there.
There was breakfast.
He wanted that in the worst way, but he didn't get it. He's on a different diet.
Well, we're kind of a throwaway society, and it's, we try to recycle when we can, but still see some. But the organizations like Keep Beatrice Beautiful, that's partly what they're there for.
Absolutely.
To look after, see what a clean community can still look like. So.
Yeah, Ashley's doing a really nice job with Keep Beatrice Beautiful and keeping it going. The board does a nice job. You think about, it's been a busy 3 or 4 weeks for them because they had Plant the Tree event for Arbor Day, and then they finish up with the Mayor for the Day here the first part of May, so it's been really busy.
And they had an electronics recycling event recently out
at
the Indian Creek Mall, and I noticed too, your Public Properties Department, they kind of work together with that organization too. So.
They do a really nice job.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was kind of, never mind. I almost took your topic.
No, that's all right. Go right to it. That's the next item on the list.
Helps if I would read a little better,
That's all right.
The other thing that was really neat about Monday night is we did do a proclamation for Public Service Recognition Week. And when you think about all the city employees that we have and all the public service people that work, it's really nice to have the opportunity to dedicate a little bit of time at a city council meeting to at least recognize all the good things that they do, because I think for the city of Beatrice, I could be wrong, but we've probably got close to 150 employees, anywhere from electrical linemen to, of course, the city attorney and across the whole spectrum and city administrator. So it was nice to read that. Kind of tied in nicely when we'll talk about later the fire department and the police department annual reports. So that's I just one of the things that you don't see even as a council member and tell your mayor is, as you work with all the different departments and you go to different events, how hard our employees really work.
Yeah.
And it's very, very gratifying for me to see each one of them work really hard and in a very professional manner.
The reporter in me looks at this, and I don't want to pound the politics about it, but you know where I'm going on this. At the higher levels of government, when you see wholesale firings or dismissals or layoffs of government workers as if everybody's bad and they're on the take and there's all this waste. And then you wonder, well, how does all this work actually get done and who does it? And the experience and the expertise it takes to do it and the dedication it takes to do it. And then you see all of a sudden these workers getting slips or emails that say your performance is not up to standard from people that don't even know who they are in some cases. I'll get off my soapbox.
That's
now.
okay. That's all right.
But it makes you think, though, somebody has to do that work because it benefits taxpayers. We pay the bill. These people help people get along in their lives.
That's very, very true. And that's one of the things you don't maybe necessarily look at because you're kind of sheltered, in Beatrice. And, you don't really think about those things. Like we've talked before, when you turn on the water and it works and you turn on the light switch and it works, you're going, oh, great.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people behind that does that. And, I'm sure some people, when a water main breaks out in front of their house, find out how quickly and how valuable our employees are. And I think, I think there's just at the local level, I think there's it's a little different, and I guess, for lack of a better word, a little nicer.
Yeah, a little friendlier.
Because we do know what our people do and how hard they work, and so it's strange times right now.
Yeah, and I look back at the storms we've had where there's debris all over and there's lines down, and you see electric department personnel up in a bucket truck in really not very good conditions. And there's a danger to it, too.
Sure.
With wires laying around and things like that. And we're all, sitting at home wondering when our power is going to come back on, and they're doing the work to put it back on.
Well, that is true. That's very, very true. And again, it's one of those things. And, as we kind of edge toward January of 26, I would encourage people to maybe start giving some thought about, city council and mayor races, because it just gives you a whole different level of understanding what it takes to have, a city of 12,500 work and all the inner workings and all the number of different jobs and opportunities there are within the city and what it takes to just keep things going and keep the lights on and keep the water flowing.
I was trying to remember how many total employees the city has, and for some reason 140 or 150 sticks out.
Yeah, that's what I
had, or somewhere around there.
It's right about there.
When you count all that. And I'm not sure if that counts like seasonal workers or part-time or things like that, but I think it's somewhere between 100 and 200 in that range.
Right. I think it's really close to 150. And for the most part, I think those are full-timers. I mean, right now we'll have a lot of part-time because you think about the water park, which isn't very far away from opening up, so we need that warm weather. And then we also have, as the grass grows, we have a number of folks that are working as far as keeping everything mowed and looking nice. Yeah. And then I think there's also some part-time people that work and help keep streets clean and those type of things. You'll see restriping going on, and occasionally you'll see fire hydrants getting painted. And as a sidebar, have you ever wondered why one fire hydrant might be red and one might be green?
It's the level of pressure.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So they can tell how much juice they have in that.
That's right.
Going out on a fire.
So there's a reason for that.
Yep. Even something that's as you wouldn't think of. There's a method to the madness.
There is.
So, yeah.
It really is.
I got to thinking Tobias probably knows the exact number, how many employees. Maybe during the break he'll text you the number.
I'm sure he does. And I was thinking it was right. It's 150 or 155. Yeah. That rings a bell to me.
And I'm sure it floats depending on vacancies and things like that. So,
yeah.
But we're speaking with Mayor Bob Morgan today on Ask the Mayor. We'll have more in a moment. This is Ask the Mayor on KWBE, speaking with Mayor Bob Morgan today. A couple of big actions. Monday night at the council meeting was a selection of a company, which happened to be the low bidder for both of the residential projects being planned where the Lincoln Elementary and Paddock Lane Elementary schools once stood. Paddock Lane's almost down. I drove by there the other day,
Yes.
and it's pretty much rubble now, but still doing some work there. Lincoln's been leveled off, but everybody's probably going to ask, when are the houses going to start?
Well, that's true. And the name escapes me who we...
Van Kirk Brothers?
Van
is that
Kirk
it?
Brothers,
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. They actually were low bid on both projects because what we did is we bid both of those out. Heritage Heights, which is Lincoln School property, and Corral Crossing, which is Paddock Lane schools. And if you wonder about the names, the connections, Heritage Heights is surrounded by a number of streets that are named after presidents. And then Corral Crossing, Paddock, is a horse term, and that's why Corral Crossing is what it is. So both of those were bid separately. We had 8 bidders. 8 companies came in, and I happened to be there for the bid opening, and the bids were pretty close. They were the low bid on both properties by, maybe like $50,000 or somewhere in that range. They've worked with JEO. They haven't had any project here in Beatrice, but if I'm not mistaken, they've done a housing development similar to this in Geneva, and if I'm not mistaken, they're from Sutton. I look forward to their opportunity of getting started actually in June.
Talk about the work they'll do at
Okay,
the sites.
I sure will.
Yeah.
What they're going to do is they're going to work on the sewer and sanitation. They're going to do the grading, and then they're going to put in the concrete streets. And so those are the 3 utility services that they're going to do. And then our own crews will come in and do the electrical and some of the other
The water.
the water.
Yeah.
So they're going to do the final grading and the streets. So when they're done and they pull away, you will see how that planned community development is going to lay out. It's maybe a little bit different. It's not going to be completely in blocks. It's going to be a planned community with a nice cul-de-sac, and I'm excited because I really think it's going to be really, really nice to have those lots. And I think there's been a little interest. It's hard to get that little interest when you first look at that big lot and say, well, how's that going to look? But hopefully,
when the streets go down, you'll be able to see kind of where the lots will be situated and things.
Right, and they'll be all platted, and you'll be able to look at a plat and look at the lots because each lot is not going to be exactly the same size or the same shape as you come around like a cul-de-sac corner. You're going to see those lots are going to be a little bit different shape than the others. But then you'll also know, I think, people will ask, well, how much are the lots? And we're in the process of trying to determine the pricing. And typically, probably what you'll see is doing that by lot square foot price. There'll probably be one price, but the larger lot will be a little more than the smaller lot.
I was trying to remember, and I saw the initial designs, but single-family development at both sites or a combination of things?
At Heritage Heights, which was Lincoln, it will be single-family homes. At Corral Crossing, the majority are single-family homes, but there will be sites for townhomes.
I see.
Up in what I would call the northeast corner. There's about I would say there's probably room for like maybe 8 to 10 townhomes. Don't hold me quite to that, but yeah.
Those are pretty big expanses of land when you think about it. When you remove the school buildings from it, I was by Lincoln School the other day, and I remember the building being there, but when that building's missing, you're thinking, wow, I forgot there was that much space there. There's a lot of room for building there.
There is. I think, again, not off the top of my head without having the papers in front of me, I think each site has got 21 lots. So you're going to have an opportunity for 40 to 42 homes or townhomes.
Yeah. Related to that, the way to finance the street work by a bond issue backed by highway allocation funds your street department gets, I assume through gas tax,
right,
things like that. The one question I had with that level of financing and committing up to $2.6 million in that bond issue, does that put a strain on you for other street department services or projects, or do you think that'll all turn out all right?
It's over. Yeah, we're paying that over a 10-year period at 4.4% interest. I remember, a year and a half ago, it was, we were getting bond
One or
ratings
two?
at 1, 2, maybe
Yeah.
2.5, but 4.4 all in is really not a bad rate when you look at where
Yeah.
rates are today. But no, we don't anticipate it that it's, I think what really helps us, and we have to do it, but I would want to do it anyway. The 1 and 6 street plans really help us prepare. I remember this year, I think we're actually going to do more than what we had planned on doing because of the way the funding has fit, and those will be repairs, overlays, and and mill and overlays. So as we look at that, and before we took that step forward, I've always talked about trying to plan ahead. And so with the street department and the city administrator, everybody sat down and looked ahead and said, I think we can do that. Otherwise, we would not have moved forward.
And I'm assuming there will be those kind of ongoing maintenance things like armor coating or
Correct.
sealing or stuff like that. So.
That's still going to be there.
Yeah.
Still going to continue to try to, do the best we can as we always have. So I don't think you'll see a big impact around the community on anything that we're not already doing.
Related to the two residential development projects, too, the consulting services from JEO, hiring them to do that. People might, and we've gone over this before, people might ask, well, why don't you just do that with your city's engineering department? But you talk about the level of work you've got going on. That might not be humanly possible.
No, you're for special projects in particular. Yeah. We've got everybody really working pretty hard. Our city engineer has been designing, and he's also, over the WPC, so he's wearing 2 hats already. Those are things that are kind of like short-term projects, because if you think about it, those 2 developments are going to be started in June, and hopefully by November they're done, or around Thanksgiving. And there is all these testing requirements, and I don't understand them. But like in concrete, I think there's these tests on how the concrete breaks, and I'm sure the people in that industry know all of that, but I don't. So you've got a number of projects on a number of what I would call tests for compaction, tests for concrete breaks, tests to make sure that there's a certain amount of construction administration that needs to be done by JEO anyway, because they're the ones that designed it, and they're going to make sure that, the contractor follows their design, because that's what the contractors are required to do. And so it just made sense for a 9-month project to have them be the overseer from start to finish, and all of the ancillary tests that need to be done in between.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that James won't be out there, and a number of other people won't be out there making sure as well that things are getting done. But I think that in this case, when you think about the equipment that you'd have to buy for all the testing, and you think about, well, what do you do with this person after that project's gone? Because you don't want to hire somebody and then say, oh, by the way, now we don't have work for you. That's just not fair. And at the end of the day, I think it's probably going to be a little less expensive. It's going to be less expensive for us to do it by having JEO do this than trying to get set up for a one-off project.
One of your council members made the comment this week that he's really happy and surprised at how fast this is moving, because these are big projects, and I know the discussion really didn't begin that long ago. I mean, maybe a year and a half ago or so, as to what plans might be for these former school sites. And are you pretty satisfied with the pace of how this is moving on?
Absolutely, absolutely. And when you think about it, there's not a lot of houses in Beatrice you can buy today. The market's very tight. This gives you the opportunity based on what your price range for your house might be. And I think these we projected somewhere between $325 and $400 is what these homes will probably cost, which, in my day, that's a lot of money, but that's in the real estate world, that's pretty considered a moderate priced home. And there'll be some covenants, they'll have to have a certain percentage brick. I think they'll have to have a 2-car garage, or they'll have to have a basement. So there's going to be a number of requirements and covenants as people look at those. But it is just going to give a nice opportunity for housing. And as far as the speed, I'm very happy. As we looked at how we could do that street out to the school, and how can we leverage what we needed to do, we really felt like those 2 sites were perfect for residential housing. So the thought was kind of planted as we were trying to figure out how to help the school.
Yeah. Okay. Back to wrap up Ask the Mayor with Mayor Bob Morgan coming up. Back to wrap up Ask the Mayor today with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan. A nice project that the Beatrice Leadership class, Beatrice Community Hospital Foundation, and the city are kind of partners on in terms of involvement is a proposed cancer memorial garden, which would be built kind of west of the municipal auditorium, not too far from the trail.
Correct. There's that green space that's there. Great project. Beatrice Leadership, that program has been going maybe like 10 years, maybe now.
I was thinking maybe it might be more than that.
It might be more than that.
Angie's going to say, Doug, you should know this. I know Dave does it because he's done a lot of interviews with Angie about it. But I think it's been, is it 15, 20?
It might be. Yeah. But, the Cancer Memorial Garden project is a really nice project. I've kind of seen the blueprints of what they want to get started. It's a big project for this, and as they said at the city council, it is a good it's going to be a great project. I think Humboldt has a cancer memorial garden, and kind of where some of the thoughts came from that. I believe the road is actually going to be kind of in the shape of the cancer heart or cancer ribbon. Going to have the trees and the plants and the calming effect, and the partnership with the Beatrice Hospital Foundation and Beatrice Leadership. It's going to take several years, and typically, I believe Beatrice Leadership Group ends. They try to get that project done, coinciding with the end of their what their school year is or their class is. But they are so dedicated to this project. A number of them have stayed on and will oversee that project for another couple of years. And so that's just kind of a big green space, great opportunity, a great way to answer or respect and celebrate the lives that cancer's taken.
The one variable, the one unknown about this, it is in a flood-prone area.
Is.
It's kind of in a fringe area, I think, because I remember some photos from the last fairly significant flood we had where it flooded like the West Scott area. At that time, I think it came up past 2nd Street and maybe to some of that land too. Not that frequently, but there's always that threat there, I guess. There
is, and we pointed that out, that they have that risk. But I think, we've done some work on Highway 136 there, Court Street, and kind of taking care of some of that drainage. So, you can never say never, but they do have to be careful with that. But again, a lot of it's going to be done with vegetation and those type of things that it can be recoverable.
Yeah, and it is a nice big space just driving by it.
It is.
There'll be a lot of room for a nice project there.
It will fit in nicely as we continue down the road to move the highway a block and redevelop the downtown. It's just going to be another added feature that people can walk to.
Not a lot of time left, and I probably didn't leave enough time for it, but police and fire annual reports this week. Your impressions about those reports?
Reports were really good. I think the reports pointed out how busy both departments are. I know that, and we saw it, the house fires were up a little bit. But I think the fire department, what they say, they have between 7 and 9 calls a day on a 24-hour period. That's quite a number.
And I've seen them where they're up around 15, 16, occasionally 14. Yeah.
Or what I was surprised at is they made the mention that sometimes they had to manage 2, 3, or 10 calls in all at the same time.
A lot of overlapping,
There's a lot of things there. I think Chief Murphy has, since the day he came in as the interim chief and now the full chief, he has come in and really been a good leader for the police department. One of the things that we're really happy with is that once we're full staffed. One's got to get through field training, but we're full staffed again, and they continue to both of them do their a lot of what I would say community projects. I mean, when you think about it, for the fire truck ride with Santa and coffee with the cops we're going to try to continue to grow that. So they have a strong interest not only in protecting and serving, but also to offer some community service.
One thing I noticed too in the last few years, you've lost some veteran members of police department and fire department, either to retirement or maybe moving to another job somewhere, but also kind of complemented that with younger staff members, and it seems like you have a really nice mix of veterans and new people now that seem to work together really well.
Yes, I think that I think the mix that we have is really a strength for both departments, and they can help each other. And the other thing is the younger folks come in. There's always different and new ideas, and one of the things that I have witnessed again for the last 2.5 years is how dedicated and how hard both departments work. And I said Monday night, you had the police department and you had the fire department working together on the Dempster fire. And you got to watch how dedicated people are, but also how much they love their job. And they want to do the best job that they can for the city.
Yeah. And sometimes, like in police officers, they're not just enforcing the law, they're kind of ambassadors too. And you have to have a skill that know when to maybe press a matter a little bit farther or just say, hey, we know you did this, but let's not do that again.
Right. I mean, I admire them. They get in. Well, both of them get into situations that are dangerous, but they, keep their composure, and they are very professional, and they do a great job.
Okay. Well, this Sunday is graduation
It is.
Sunday in Beatrice at Beatrice High School, and Dave wanted me to ask you because we were talking about this morning. Do you remember your high school graduation? What it was like? I don't hardly remember. It's been a long time.
Well, that's probably one of those categories in my brain called worthless information, but yes, I do. And the only reason I do is, long story short, I followed my sister that was 3 years older. And, I don't know how many people out there have followed the one that's the kind of the rock star who's the 4.0 and the popular one, and then here comes the little brother, and they're going, "Are you sure you're Becky's brother?" But I do remember that, and the only reason I remember that is I didn't think there would even be a chance that I'd get a scholarship, and all of a sudden I got my name called for a $250 scholarship.
Wow.
And got to go on the stage and take it. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have remembered my high school graduation.
Well, you turned out all right, Bob.
Well, opinions vary, but yeah.
Don't want to get into local politics there. Boy, I'll tell you what. But yeah, you went from retail to education, and now retired in public service. At
Public
the
service.
city
So
level. Yeah.
it has been an interesting career.
Yeah. All right. Thanks very much, Bob. Appreciate you being with us again.
Doug, thank you.